Hey, and welcome back to Miss Kitty's Wild West Adventures. What if I told you that the skull of one of the most famous Native American warriors in history was stolen, and it might be sitting in a Yale frat house even as we speak? That's right. A secret society known as Skull and Bones is rumored to have swiped Geronimo's remains for their creepy little clubhouse. But how did we get from the deserts of Arizona to Ivy League hijinks? Well, stick around, because to understand the end of Geronimo's story, we've got to go back to the bloody beginning. Before we get started, this video was requested by John Box. Before he was Geronimo, he was Goyale, a Bedonke Apache boy born around 1829. He wasn't born into war, but war found him early on. In 1851, while he was off trading, a Mexican military unit attacked his camp near Llanos, Chihuahua. When he returned, he found his wife, his mother, and his 3 children all slaughtered. He later said, "My heart would ache for revenge. I could not call back my loved ones, but I could rejoice in the punishment of their murderers." And just like that, Goyale became Geronimo, the man who would terrify 2 nations. Now let's be clear about one thing. Geronimo was never a chief. He was a spiritual leader and a warrior, but not a political one. Yet somehow he became the face of Apache resistance. He fought Mexican soldiers, then he fought the US Army, then he fought both. This man was like a walking middle finger to colonial powers. And his reputation, pure legend. Soldiers swore he could disappear into thin air. They said he could dodge bullets. One general called him the worst Indian that ever lived. Geronimo didn't lead with brute force. He led with sheer, stubborn refusal to be conquered. Geronimo didn't just fight, he escaped. Over and over. He broke out of Apache reservations and military custody 3 times. That's more than Harry Houdini. The army would breathe a sigh of relief, thinking they had him. And a few days later, poof, gone again. In his final campaign, he and just 38 followers evaded 5,000 US troops and 500 Apache scouts. Nope, I didn't misspeak. It took thousands to hunt him down. Imagine the embarrassment. The US Army basically declared war on a small family group and still couldn't catch him for months. Eventually, though, even legends get tired. On September 4th, 1886, Geronimo finally surrendered to General Nelson Miles in Skeleton Canyon, Arizona. He was the last major Native American leader to lay down arms, effectively ending the Apache Wars. But instead of execution, he was paraded around like a living relic. First a prisoner of war, then a celebrity. He sold autographs at expositions. He appeared in Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. And even as he rode in Teddy Roosevelt's 1905 inaugural parade, dressed in a feathered headdress and looking thoroughly unimpressed, Geronimo remained a prisoner of war. Later in life, Geronimo was baptized as a Christian, but he wrestled with it. He once said, "I am not ashamed to be a Christian, but I do not go very far with it," which feels like the 1900s version of, "I'll go to church, but don't expect me to sing." He dictated an autobiography to a US Army officer, Geronimo, his own story, one of the few first-hand Native American memoirs ever published. But even that came with a filter, shaped by the same government that imprisoned him. At the end of his life, Geronimo confided in his nephew, saying, "I should have never surrendered. I should have fought until I was the last man alive." It wasn't bitterness, it was clarity, the kind that only comes from living long enough to see your own legend misunderstood. He died in 1909 at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, after falling off a horse and developing pneumonia. And just when you thought that was the end, here's where things get weird again. In 1918, 9 years after Geronimo's death, a letter emerged from a member of Yale's Skull and Bones Society. a group known for secret rituals and, well, borrowing things that don't exactly belong to them. The letter claimed that some bonesmen had dug up Geronimo's grave, stolen his skull, and brought it back to their tomb in New Haven, Connecticut. One of those bonesmen, Prescott Bush, grandfather of George W. In 2009, Geronimo's descendants sued to get the skull back. The U.S. government responded with, essentially, "We don't know if it's really his, and anyway, we're not sure where it is." So the final mystery of Geronimo's story, whether the man who escaped armies, rode in presidential parades, and resisted two nations is now trapped in a glass case in a Yale basement. Geronimo wasn't just a warrior, he was a symbol. Of loss, yes, but also of resistance, of endurance, of the refusal to disappear. And if his skull really was taken and hidden away, maybe that's because even in death, some people are just too powerful to bury. If you found this story fascinating, drop a skull emoji in the comments. And if you want to see more stories of the wild, weird, and untamed West, hit that subscribe button. Every week, we dig up tales just like this, though usually with fewer grave-robbing Ivy Leaguers. See y'all next time on Miss Kitty's Wild West Adventures. Catch you on down the trail.